How are you, child of God? This is the Remnant Seed Bible Study channel. Welcome. Today's subject is the Harpadzo, the Greek word Harpadzo. I want to take a really close look at this and show you exactly what this word means and how the rapture apologists have hijacked this word and turn it into something that is basically it's not. And it just puts the whole rapture doctrine, this one point right here debunks the whole rapture doctrine. So let's jump right into this. Now, does the flesh body get harpazo or harpazoed, or however you want to say it? Or is it the spirit that gets harpazoed? Which one of these gets harpazoed? Okay, and I'm going to show you this once we get deeper into this. I'll prove to you exactly what the harpazo is. And at the heart of this debate is what happens to people who are caught up to meet the Lord at His second coming. But this also has to do with what happens to people when they die. And this is the heart of this debate of what this word harpazo means. Now, how does the Greek language explain the death of the flesh? The answer is found in the Greek word harpazo. Rapture apologists have turned the whole meaning of harpazo into a circus sideshow. Is the flesh body taken into the clouds to fly around in the air before death? Or are they changed in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, into their spiritual body? Which one is it? Do they do this before they meet the Lord in the air? And actually that term, meet the Lord in the air, is kind of a moot point because it's really basically saying meet the Lord in your spiritual body. So that kind of disproves it right there, okay? When you look at the word air in the Greek, it's your suke, it's your spiritual body. That's what you meet the Lord in. You don't meet the Lord in the air, the literal air, the circumvent air you breathe. It's the suke, spiritual body, that you meet the Lord in. And this fits with the explanation. Rapture apologists claim the flesh body is snatched away from the earth and millions of people will simply disappear. When the harpazo is fully understood, it will be made clear what really happens at the second coming. And this also happens to everybody who's died in the past. Harpazo is used to explain the death of the flesh in the Greek language. To be caught up is simply what happens when you die, beloved. This is the words that the word that the Greek language uses to describe the death of the flesh. And it's just that simple, beloved. And I'll show it to you. I'll prove this to you. Now, the whole premise behind the rapture doctrine is flawed at the most basic level, including the chronology. To be absent from the flesh is to be present with the Lord, right? We all can agree with that. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 8. How do you meet the Lord in the air if you're still in your flesh body flying around in the clouds? See, this doesn't jive. It doesn't make any sense, beloved. You have to be absent from the flesh to be present with the Lord. And I say respectively because the Lord can appear to people while you're still alive, but this is in the general sense of dying. So you have to keep the entire Bible in context, beloved. And when you look at this, you look at all the other verses that describe the second coming and also the verses that describe the death of the flesh. And you have to look at everything within context. There are many verses that tell us what happens at the moment of death. Beloved, don't lose sight of this. There's not one flesh body in heaven at this time. And there never will be. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. So you can't have all these flesh bodies flying around in the atmosphere, with the Lord, and they're playing harps and the Lord's riding around on a white horse in the clouds and everybody's playing harps and just having a good old time. That's not what's being explained. It's not what the Greek language bears out at all, beloved. So here's an exclamation point below. I want to draw special attention to this. 2 Corinthians 5:8 and Ecclesiastes 12:6 and 7 basically explain the harpazo, and which is basically the separation of the body and the spirit. The spirit is harpazo, away from the flesh body and separated at the moment of death. Not the flesh body harpazo, away from the earth and separated from the earth. And this, beloved, this is a classic bait and switch theology, and it's a false understanding of the context of the word harpazo. Now let's go over these two verses I gave you examples of. 2 Corinthians 5:8, we are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. And notice it doesn't say your body goes and lays in a hole in the ground, beloved. When you die, your body goes instantly back to the Father, and that's exactly what happens to you. You don't go to the center of the earth in molten lava. You don't go lay in a hole in the ground. There's really no transition at all. To be absent from the Lord, from the body, is to be present with the Lord. And Ecclesiastes 12:6 and 7 bear this out too. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the will be broken at the cistern. This is talking about death. Then shall the dust return to the earth. This is talking about what happens after you die, as it was. And the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. And then the dust is symbolic for your flesh and carnal mankind. Your flesh body goes back to dirt, and your spirit goes back to God. This is the definition of the great harpazo, beloved. It's explained on an individual basis and also collectively at the second coming. There's no getting around death, beloved. It's appointed unto man once to die. We all got to die. Someone actually goes through the limbo process of going to paradise. So actually just transition from this flesh, this age of carnal flesh, and go directly to the millennial reign of Christ without ever having to go to the holding place. And that's the mystery that Paul was talking about. Now let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4:17. This is the rapture apologists' go-to scripture. This is the one they quote. This is the one they stick by. And this is basically their only verse that they come up with that they can actually say that this is a rapture. But there's no chronology in this verse. Okay, there's nothing that says when here. Okay, that's just a side note. So then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Now I'm going to break this verse down, for you here. So we'll get to that. I want to go through the Greek words. If you really want to understand this verse, there's actually four words I want you to really break down and look at the Greek meaning of them. And this is the only way you're going to understand this, because the way the English reads, you can't deny that it is very misleading, and it tends to. This is where these people go wrong. They're not looking at the original language. They're only looking at the Greek. And if they do look at the Greek, then the rapture apologists try to twist it to fit the narrative that they're trying to give you about this pre-tribulation rapture, which is, beloved, it's a fairy tale. It's completely false, okay? Now look at the word. Let's look at the first word. It's caught up. There are two words. And the Greek meaning, it's found in the Greek number 726 in your Strongs. And it's to seize, to catch up, snatch away, obtain by robbery, catch, seize, take by force. Beloved, this is what happens. This is what happens to your flesh body. When you die, there's a separation of your spirit from your body. And if you've ever been with a loved one that's died, or anybody that's died in the past, when they die, you'll see their flesh body is still there, okay? But their spirit is gone. They are literally gone. They're separated. And this is the whole meaning of the word harpadzo. It's simply a separation of your spirit, the real you, the essence of who you are, goes back to the Father that gave it, as Ecclesiastes tells you. This is the harpadzo. It's a separation of your spirit body from your flesh body. Once that spirit leaves that terrestrial body, that body goes back to the dirt, back to the dust, never to be thought of, never to be used. It doesn't know anything. It's nothing but dirt. The real essence of who you are went back to the Father, and that's the whole meaning of harpadzo. Okay, so this is basically where the rapture apologists get this all wrong. And the whole basic premise of this doctrine centers around this word harpadzo, beloved. And when you can prove what the real meaning of this word harpadzo is, then the whole rapture doctrine, pre-trib rapture doctrine, goes down the tubes. It's gone. It's completely debunked with this one word. So they believe the definition of harpadzo is the physical body being snatched away from the earth. And this is the basis of their argument for the rapture. If you look at the Greek word harpadzo closely within the context of the verses it's used, it better describes what happens at the moment of death. It's found in 2 Corinthians 5:8 and Ecclesiastes 12:6 and 7. These are perfect descriptions of the death process. And harpadzo, these are companion verses. These should all be looked at in the context of dying, what happens when you die. And harpadzo in the Greek is explaining what happens when you die, the separation of the physical body and the spiritual body. Now, harpadzo describes what happens to the physical body when the spirit is snatched away from it. And I'm going to go over this several times, beloved, so this sinks in, okay? At that moment, the celestial body goes back to God to seize, to catch up, to snatch away by robbery. It's almost like when you look at a person's body after they've died, it's almost like the spirit was robbed. Somebody came and took that spirit. They snatched it away. They forced it away from the body. And in a sense, you know, that's what death is. That spirit is snatched away from that body. And this is a perfect description of harpadzo. When a person dies, their spirit is separated from their carnal body. The spirit goes back to God who gave it, and the flesh body goes back to the dust. This is the essence of the word harpadzo, beloved. Now, the only problem with the rapture is, this is so funny, they get the wrong body. Can you imagine that? Your flesh body isn't going anywhere but into a hole in the ground, and that's it. You're done with it. You don't want to take it with you anywhere. It's a cheap suitcase, beloved. Now, here's how fast this change of bodies will be. In 1 Corinthians 15:51, I love chapter 15 in 1 Corinthians. It's the explanation of the spirit and the celestial and the terrestrial bodies that Paul goes through and lays it out for you, beloved. You're born with two bodies, one celestial and one terrestrial. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. And the word sleep can better be translated limbo, but we shall be changed into a spiritual body in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump, which is the seventh trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. And the change, beloved, is instantaneous. There's no transition. You don't fly around in the clouds for a half hour, or hour and a half, or a couple days. It's bam, bam. It's that quick. The time it takes for you to blink your eyes, how fast this will happen. And it just takes all the fun out of it for all these people who like to look at the second coming as some kind of a Hollywood movie. It's just basically, 1 minute you'd be taking a step, you'd be looking down at the floor, and the next minute you're looking at eternity. It's just that quick. You won't even know it. It'll just happen. Okay, so let's keep going. Verse 53: For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. The celestial body is incorruptible, and the terrestrial body is corruptible. One is spirit, and one is flesh. Okay. The celestial is spirit, and the terrestrial is flesh. It comes from the dirt, terra firma. There are also celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial body is one, and the glory of the terrestrial body is another. Now this comes from 1 Corinthians 15:40. It's an explanation of Paul about these two bodies. And when you die, there's a separation of the terrestrial and the celestial. It's just that simple, beloved. Now let's continue in this word study of these 4 words. I wanted you to go over and to know these in the Greek. And the best explanation for the word clouds, as is found in 1 Thessalonians 4:17, is nephos. And it's 3509. And it means a dense crowd, a multitude, or great company. And beloved, that's a perfect explanation what happens at the second coming. Christ will bring all the saints who have died in the past with him, who have been held in paradise. They will resurrect with him to this next age, and they will come down to earth. And we who are alive and remain will die at that time, be changed into our spiritual bodies, and we will be gathered together in a nephos, the Greek word nephos. It's a dense crowd, a multitude, a great company. This is the entire population of God's family will gather together at this time, beloved. And air is the Greek 5590, and it's the suke, it's the breath, the soul, the vital breath, the breath of life, the human soul. And this is the body you'll be in at the second coming. In the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, you're changed into your breath of life body at the second coming. And then, beloved, this also applies to everybody who's died in the past. This transition is instantaneous. To be absent from the flesh is to be present with the Lord. You can't overlook that. Now, again, the rapture believers turn this into a circus. They interpret this as your flesh body flying around in the air, in the clouds, and meeting Christ at this rapture. And it's they completely twisted the whole meaning of the whole thing, beloved. It's a circus sideshow for rapture believers. It's a Hollywood movie. It's how books are written, Left Behind, The Late Great Planet Earth. I won't even mention the authors. These books are pure fiction, and people believe them as to be scriptural, and they couldn't be further from the truth. Now, if you look at the word air in different meanings, this is the secondary meaning. It can mean the air you breathe. This as naturally circumambient, but this doesn't fit. You're not flying around in the air in your flesh body. You're flying around in your flesh, in your air body. You're not flying around in the air. You're flying around in your air, breath of life body. Do you see how that works, beloved? Now, rapture teachers claim that the harpadzo is the flesh being snatched away, right? But in reality, it's the spirit being snatched away. leaving the body behind. And that's the essence of the harpazo. Now, I just got the Webster's meaning of this word rapture, which is, you can't find it anywhere in the Bible, and they'll try to claim it's in the, it's in the Latin or whatever, but you're not going to find the word rapture in the original manuscripts. Nowhere. It's not there. And it's just like the word itself. They claim it's there in the scriptures, but it's not, beloved. It's just not. I'm sorry. And you look at all these descriptions. This is the description of a purely carnal event, and it does not describe what happens at the moment you die. So this is another bait and switch. They just completely miss the boat on the meaning of being caught up. It's not even close. Not even close. And you can't find this anywhere in the manuscripts. Nowhere are any of these, like planes falling out of the sky and the pilots raptured, and same with buses, trains, cars, boats, nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers. I could go on and on and on and on and on. And they claim that people are gone and their clothes are laying there. It's just it's a D-rated space movie is what it is. It's a joke being played on Christians right now, beloved, and it needs to stop. Now, it's rather ironic that the go-to word harpazo for rapture apologists turns out to be their nemesis. How on earth can a so-called teacher mix up bodies and confuse them with one another? Why would you want to drag that old nasty flesh body halfway to heaven with you anyway, beloved? And it's so awful what they do to God's word. There's really no excuse for it, beloved. They've done the old bait and switch, like the old con, they've conned Christian believers into believing this, basically a Hollywood movie version of the second coming of Christ, and made a mockery out of it. Anyway, I hope you understand this, and I hope you take it to heart, beloved. And to all you rapture teachers out there, you need to stop this right now. This is a fantasy. It's a lie, and Satan is using you, whether you know it or not. You're being used as a tool of the devil to deceive God's children about the second coming. And if I were the devil, this is exactly the way I do it. This is exactly the way I do it. Anyway, much love from me to you, and we'll see you on the next lecture.